Right, Mary, what is your fifth and final tip for us, please?
So the final one is, my suggestion is that everyone, wherever they are in the sector, whether they're an early career teacher, middle leader, learning support, senior leader, asking themselves on a regular basis, who is this for? Why are we doing this? Not in an aggressive way, but who are we doing this for? And so I have a number on the hit list for this. One is marking. Who are we marking for? We do know, Dylan William has worked out that if you factored in teachers' time in England, we spend about £4.5 billion a year on marking. And most of it makes absolutely no difference to children's learning. I'm not saying we never mark, but it's like, are we using whole class feedback? Are we using AI kind of tools? Are we self-assessing mini whiteboards? All that sort of stuff. Complete and utter waste of time, most of it. So marking is a big one. So if I'm having to put in data, who's it for? How far in secondary pupils are on track to meet their target? Why have we got targets? Who says we have to have targets? Where do they come from? Who's it for? I mean, why don't we just give everyone in secondary a target of a 9? They're not going to get a 9, but I'm more likely to get more children hitting higher grades if I'm pitching it high. And so there's an awful lot of stuff that just happens in systems and structures because we don't often ask why often enough. And there's a lot of muddle thinking as well. So lots of people say to me, well, we use Fisher Family Trust, in secondary to set targets. They're not targets, sweetheart. They're estimates. They don't talk about them as their targets. They're estimates. And if you look at them carefully, the scatter graph, not a gun, a graph. A child from quite a allegedly low starting point, if they got 20% of getting a reasonable grade, I'm going to teach them. So stop the mucking about. Everything a 9. I know they're not all going to get it, but more of them are likely to. And stop this nonsense of, basing targets on dodgy data, just ridiculous. Key stage 2 SATs and they're thing, don't know when they'll come back, but the last year, 2019, for which we have any data, and then if you just look at how narrow that is, that's mathematics. And that isn't even writing in English. It's just reading. Reading's the right thing. And the spaggy stuff. And yet you're going to predict on the basis of that how a child is going to do in religious education or design and technology or science. Are you kidding me? So we've got lots of stuff that we just need to ask, not in a cynical way, but why are we doing this? Who's it for? And if the answer is for another adult, can't they work it out? I've got to mark because senior leaders want to see it. It's like I'm not teaching senior leaders. I'm teaching my kids, and I can tell you, Craig, I have done enough book scrutinies with senior leaders, both on inspection and as an invited guest in schools. I never do them on my own. And you sit down with them and they say, "What are you looking for in these books?" And I'm looking to see if the books have been marked. I say, "Marvelous." Now, so what difference has that made? Oh, we don't look to see if it's made any difference. Come on. All this performative stuff. So what I'm getting at here, so this is my final tip. We ask in a nice way, I'm an early career teacher, so you asked me to put all this data in. And it's the same in primary as well, all this skills progression, complete nonsense. They've either got it or they haven't, yes or no. What am I doing about the kids who haven't got it? So can you just tell me who needs this? Well, governors need it. Yeah, but why do they need it? Just keep asking why, because they don't, because it's dodgy data. So just who's it for?
I love this one. This I like this. I always like when we end with a bit of controversial one as well. And you've hit a great one here, Mary. It's great, this. I'm just thinking of, let's think about this early careers teacher, because they're the ones who are going to be like, what is going on here? And we know teachers leave the profession for many reasons, behavior, definitely one of them, but also workload and kind of pointless workload like this. It's frustrating. You've talked about the data, the QLAs, all that kind of stuff, the marking, the written feedback and so on, and the targets, which we know can put a ceiling on kids' ambitions and so on. So do you think it works? And did you have experience that this, you know, an early careers teacher asks the head of department, who is this for? I can imagine the head of the department's going to say, well, SLT have kind of mandated it, and then the head of department then has to think, right, I'm going to go to SLT. Do you think is it realistic that this will play out, that will lead to a lasting kind of improvement?
Yeah, well, we either crucify ourselves, you know, and just go along with it, or, you know, if someone can justify it to me, fine, absolutely fine. But if they can't, it's just for another adult further up the stream. So I think, you know, we are all professionals. And so if I'm a head of department and my you know, someone newly joined, early career, asked me that, I don't know. I think senior leaders want it. I've got an obligation to go and have a chat with senior leaders. Then they're going to say, oh, governors want it. Well, why do governors want it? They need to know what standards are like, but we don't do it through dodgy data. We do it through samples of children's work. A bit of evidence tells a big story. And so, yeah, there are schools that are doing this, that, you know, they are looking at samples of children's work, primary and secondary, in line manager meetings, and saying, you know, just talking through where the children are. The curriculum itself is the progression model. You don't need this, this body pseudo scientific stuff. And we've got billions of quid tied up in investment in MIS systems, which is, I think, is professionally criminal. Got to start, you know, cutting a load of this stuff out, and just asking, because, you know, I think it's one of the most powerful things we can do is to ask in a nice way. I'm not talking about being aggressive, but it's about being having a healthy professional skepticism. I'm always happy to be persuaded that I'm wrong. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is power up people's self-confidence. You're professionals. You are graduates. And, you know, get the tone right, which I think most people do. And I'm just not sure. I can do this really well. It doesn't take much on my part to pretend to be stupid, because I am in lots of respects. It's like, now, I'm just not sure what's going on here. Do talk me through. I know exactly what's going on, actually, but I'm going to pretend I'm stupid, because I am, in, as I say, in lots of respects. But in this one, I have thought it through pretty carefully.
Last question on this, Mary. Do you? One thing I certainly see, and I wonder whether you see this and what your response is because evidence seems to find its way into kind of teachers' practice a lot more. Like, teachers will reference, I'm doing this, I'm doing retrieval practice because it's a desirable difficulty, and so on. I often get messages on Twitter, DMs and stuff from teachers saying, I've been asked to do written feedback. Can you send me some evidence to suggest that this is not a good idea to do? Or I've been asked to do targets. Can you send me some evidence that it's not? And there seems to be almost, if we can find the evidence to either support this or go against it, we can use that to arm ourselves. But what my sense has always been, it's a lot more difficult than that, because you know, you can pick apart many of these research studies. A lot of them, particularly something like targets. I mean, how on earth are you running that? You know, you've got one group who gets targets, one doesn't. It feels quite a difficult thing to have an authentic context that matches your experience. Do you feel that, do you often hear this, that kind of, when you speak to SLT or governors or whoever, they want the evidence against what they're already doing before they change their mind? Or do you think a reasoned discussion will be enough to convince people?
Yeah, in my experience, it's a reasoned discussion. It's like you see, I'm going to be really controversial here, but I think the sector as a whole is quite immature, and not the individuals in it. And so we've adopted, I don't know, about 15 years or so ago, a lot of management kind of systems and structures that were thought to be a good thing. Not noticed that most organizations have dumped them, but we've still gone to them because they feel comforting. You know, oh, well, we've got all our data. I tell you, the number of governors and senior leaders who've got out their data, and I just walk me through what this is saying. They can't do it, Craig. They can't do it because it's gobbledygook, you know. So I don't need to produce 1,000 pieces of research, because the evidence is there as we're having the conversations. If they can convince me otherwise, it's fine. but they can't. I might just not have met them. There might be someone with truckloads of data who I can have a conversation with, and they can pinpoint exactly what is going on. Year 9, low prior-attaining pupils, mathematics, and they can walk me through it. Fantastic. Interestingly, I will just wrap up with this. I've been burbling on a bit, but I was doing an inspection a few years ago in a school, and it was just before the first half term in the autumn term. So we were able to talk about, the published data, have some conversations about that. But then, of course, you need to know what's happening for children currently in the school, not just the ones who've left. And so I was talking to the head about, I was talking about the maths actually, and I said, have you got any sense of how your low prior attaining students in mathematics are doing, for instance, in year 9? He looked at me and he said, "Oh, Mary, it's such a shame you're in this week because we've just done our data, stuff, and we're just crunching the data." So I just looked at him and I said, "I think you know." Of course he knew. He didn't need the blimmin' data to. How did he know? Managing by walking around, in and out of lessons, not with a clipboard, but in a genuine spirit of just finding out what's going on here. Can I be of help? And all that sort of stuff. Strong leaders know. They know what's going on. So he didn't need the data to. That's my point really. That we do know, and mostly we're putting in stuff we already know. So why are we doing it? I'm not saying we don't talk about the published stuff, or if they've been doing, reading tests or, external stuff, internally generated school data. It was one of the big things that got to ask why we're doing it.
Fantastic.